We often have talked a lot in the past on our good morning walks on a Saturday, by the way, a little plug for that, um, about how there is a coming Tory civil war. And I think the fires have been lit. I think something could happen. I think there is a very good likelihood you will see certain sections of the party certainly in the coming weeks at the Tory conference be very, very vocal about Boris Johnson, about the future and the direction of the party, and that we have a Tory party at the moment which won a very big majority. No one can stop them from passing anything unless there is at least a very significant rebellion. We have seen now that at least 40% of Boris Johnson's own party don't support him, which, given any other political party, even in business or anything like that, if at least like 40% of your organization doesn't support you, that's a pretty significant number, a very significant number. And today we're going to go over comments of the former chair of the Tory party, because these comments coming from certainly like a former chair aren't good for commenting on a current sitting Tory prime minister. And these seeds of rebellion all go back to very much planted in and around Brexit, all go all the way back to David Cameron fighting against the ERG, then of course becoming more bolder after Brexit under Theresa May, pushing them even further. More groups have now emerged, all with different loyalties, all with different ideologies that are all different and competing against each other. It's no longer, as the ERG were once said, to be the party within the party. There are now parties within the party. And it's only a matter of time until something breaks. But it's just a question of what. Now, certainly the no confidence vote will have given them a lot of ammo and ammunition, but it's now what? And this is what even I said after that no confidence vote, it's what now? What are you going to do now? What's your next move? Is there going to be some serious organization, or is it going to be individual actions? For that, we don't know. Almost certainly it would need to be better, to be, shall we say, organized, but because of the shall we say, the fractional nature now of the Tory party, maybe that group action just is no longer possible. So anyway, we're going to go diving into these comments because these are quite fascinating, to be honest. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, there is the YouTube subscription button where if you subscribe to that, you'll get all sorts of little bells and whistles and badges and whatnots. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And on with this. So this comes from The Independent with the title of Boris Johnson's victory at the next election would be a disaster for Tories and Britain, says the former party chair. So, victory for Boris Johnson at the next general election would be a disaster for the Conservative Party and Britain, and would hasten the breakup of the United Kingdom, former Tory chairman Chris Patten has said. Lord Patten said that under Johnson, the party was no longer conservative, but English nationalist, and said that he would like to see a coalition of centre-ground government after the next election. He blasted the Johnson administration for, quote, seediness and mendacity, and said that the culture secretary, Nadine Dorries, assaults on the BBC made him want to throw up. That's, you see, this is really it. We are seeing so many of the center ground Tories be so pushed away and reviled by the direction that Johnson is pulling the party even further right. And not just Johnson, but others in the party. Again, those big Brexit hardcore zealots, those free market libertarian conservatives pulling the party even more and more further right. This is scaring them off. And remember, and a lot of people are not going to be happy about that, what I say next, but this is exactly some of the stuff that scared away centrist Labour voters away from Corbyn. And this is also what made a lot of Lib Dems who were centrists vote for the Conservatives, because they wanted to keep Corbyn out. And I keep on saying it time and time again, unfortunately, the way our party is, the way that the electoral landscape of the UK is structured, you have 25% voting Conservative, or at least identify with right wingers. You have 25% again that are associated with them sort of as the left. And then in the middle, depending on which poll you read, it can be from 30 to 35% people identify as centrists. Either side, left or right, cannot win without at least getting 10 to 15% of that centrist vote. And yeah, this upsets a lot of people, especially on the left, because they always go, oh my God, the Labour isn't going to do all these, really, lefty progressive stuff. But ultimately, you look at what people like Angela Rayner is saying. Look at Ed Miliband, what he's saying about what he wants to build up unions and give them more power to do stuff. The shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who's been saying some really good stuff about rebuilding a green economy. It's there, but a lot of people don't like it because it doesn't go far enough. But the problem is, the further you go left, the more you scare away the centrists, and then they go running to either Lib Dems or, even worse, they go back to the Conservatives. And of course, a big part of this is down to our first past the post situation, and I agree that needs changing. But that is unfortunately the political reality that we face. But anyway, we're going to go back into some of these quotes. He told LBC Radio that the Prime Minister was giving in to the mob over Northern Ireland and the threats to tear up the post-Brexit agreement. Lord Patten, who was chair of the Tories from 1990 to 1992, chair of the BBC, so that said that Mr. Johnson was leading a government that was both populist and unpopular, and whose policies were driven by the priority of keeping the Prime Minister in office. That's very true. Anyway, some more of his comments here. There are still some people, I think, who are conservatives, but I don't think it's a conservative government, he told Andrew Marr. I think it's an English nationalist government, and it's unfortunately both populist and unpopular, which is a terrible combination. Every move is determined, as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, by whatever is appealing to his right wing to keep him in office. That's the part of the reason for it. I think the general sense of the seediness and mendacity about the government. He issued a warning that the party of the dangers of keeping Johnson in the post to fight the next election expected in 2024, saying, for me, the Conservatives, unless they change very radically, winning the next election would be a disaster for them and the rest of us. So there is a potential opportunity that they could win. Or maybe they don't get in just, maybe they sort of get propped up by the DUP again, as Theresa May was. But there is an entire possibility that Boris Johnson could win again. Certainly a very much reduced minority government. but that is very much possible. They could very much win. That's very, very worrying. That's why I've said we really, really need, especially the left and Labour and the Lib Dems, really, really need to get organised about doing, focusing on we're going to run here. So you guys, you might not be Labour, but vote Lib Dem, or these guys in here, you might not be, Labour, but vote for Labour in here. Hopefully, we're going to see this in sort of the upcoming by-elections this week, which will be interesting, certainly, to see. Almost seems as if Wakefield is going to go in the direction of Labour from all the polls that we've seen. Tiverton Outen looks as if it is going to be close. I think it's going to be very close. I haven't seen any polls, but from seeing what's been going on there on the ground and sort of seeing people talking about, doing, the door knocking, they certainly seem to think it's going to be close as well. I think I can very much agree with them. Anyway, he continued, saying, Lord Patten also said, because I don't think we have a Conservative government at the moment, I think, as I've said, we have an English nationalist government with all the consequences, and it's one that you can't trust. A second term for Johnson would hasten the breakup of the Union, making it more likely for Scotland and Northern Ireland to leave the UK, he said. If you want to break up the Union, you send Boris Johnson up to Scotland, he said. Instead, he would prefer to see, quote, a coalition which would hold the Union together, led by a decent, competent, generous-spirited and sensible political force in the middle, which nobody is at present providing. He accused Johnson of playing fast and loose with the Good Friday Agreement, threatening to override the Northern Ireland Protocol, which he negotiated and agreed with the EU less than 3 years ago. Of course, Lord Patten played an important part in the peace process, so of course he's really, really annoyed at this. Not surprising. He said, this is an interesting quote about the DUP. To play to the hardcore in the DUP is really dangerous, he said. You're actually giving in to the mob in a really significant and unattractive way. If they trusted us more, the EU would be prepared to go even further, I think, in negotiating reasonable terms. I think they're prepared to at least do that to a considerable extent anyway, whether or not they actually trust us. But the fact is that they don't trust us, and that makes it all the more difficult. Why should we expect to trust this government when we don't even trust this government? Lord Patterson, who then campaigned for a reign in the 2016 referendum, said he expected the UK to one day return to the single market, saying, it cannot make sense to lock yourself out of your closest, most significant market, he said, and that's unfortunate, what we've done. He was scathing about, of course, Nadine Dorries, saying, you would think that the UK had lost our marbles. The words Nadine Dorries and culture should not appear in the same sentence. It's an appalling idea that this minister should be threatening the BBC, and others should be going along with it, trying to box the BBC into giving special favours in a way that the news is treated to the government. We should have had nothing to do with it, and we should be making a real fuss about it. So, yeah, as you can see, it's a lot of the old former, Conservative ministers that aren't very happy with this. Most of them, as you said, very, very much centrists about this. But we'll have to see how this poll plays out. These comments, I think, are very, very damning against Johnson. I think we're going to see some very significant outcries probably at the next Conservative conference. How they will play out, we don't know. Maybe we might see mass resignations from the Conservative Party. We've already seen donors being very, very cagey about donating more money to a potential Johnson 2024 run, which will certainly affect, the Conservatives if they're losing their major donors. That will be a big, obviously, blow to not only Johnson, but the Conservatives. But ultimately, this just reinforces the fact of next general election, we really, really have to get our act together on tactical voting. That's why, especially the next two by-elections coming up, are coming to really, really important to show how that can work and how that can even be done. So, with fingers crossed, certainly for those two by-elections, because that's certainly going to put more pressure on Johnson. Of course, the Standards Committee also reporting. people put 6 months on Johnson, his time limit with those two things. As always, we will have to see. As we've said before, Johnson has survived things that would have, shall we say, destroyed other politicians of a lot more, shall we say, capable than him. So, as always, we'll have to wait and see what happens, unfortunately, but that's the state of British politics at the moment. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to head down below and check out my Patreon page. Of course, there's the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next.